What's going on, guys? Welcome to Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle-earth. So this is going to be a new player's guide for 2024, and I wanted to go through some things that you should know, characters you should be looking at, store things, how to spend your gold, etc., etc. as a new player joining the great game of Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle-earth. So let's go ahead and dive into it. All right, guys. So you downloaded Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle-earth. Maybe you came from another game similar to it, like Marvel Strike Force or Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, which is another Capital Games game, which is the creators of Heroes of Middle-earth. You've been playing it for, I don't know, about a week or two, and you said, hey, I really like this game and I want to know more about it. One of those types that decide to search the internet and scavenge what are the meta builds, what are the best characters, who are the content creators in YouTube to help me kind of figure these things out. And well, I want to put together something here that is kind of a quick start guide on just sort of like the everything and anything you might need to know in this game. So first couple of weeks, say you're about 2 weeks in or under a month, you're probably sitting at around 30 to 40, right? I think in the first day you can almost hit level 13. I think in the first couple days you can get to 20 or 25. Level 30, you do unlock raids, so that is a big milestone. You want to try and find a guild. Now, guilds in the game are pretty bad. It's not a great system to just kind of find one out there because you're probably not going to find a guild if you are somebody who's actually looking to be, you know, semi-competitive in the game, like somebody who actually wants to play the game and progress and not just kind of, I'm going to play this game every once in a while. Because if that's you, that's totally fine. Like, there's nothing against just having a mobile game on your phone that you check every once in a while. You definitely don't have to be somebody who's trying to get in there and do everything and anything that they can on an everyday basis, trying to min-max everything. But if you are somebody who's trying to really take the game a little bit more serious, the guilds that you can just randomly find and kind of join through the guild system is not going to be your friend. Because the search function in here and so forth, I don't even remember where it is. I'm in a guild, so it's a little bit hard for me to kind of actually figure that out. But regardless, you're not really going to have a good time going through the guild system in that regard. I would avoid it. I would join either the Reddit for Heroes of Middle-earth. I would join the official and the unofficial Discords for Heroes of Middle-earth. And there are sections within there that you can do looking for guild. And I promise you, if you post in there, you do a screenshot of your current character's progression, and you just explain like what kind of player you are, you will find a home that fits your need. And then from there, you can decide, am I casual, am I competitive, am I hardcore, and kind of work your way through the ranks as you kind of are making your progress to max level, kind of taking your characters to the next level, etc., right? So I would recommend when you're starting the game and you hit level 30, raids and guilds is kind of your friend. Go after those. So as you've been playing the game, you start with Strider. Obviously, everybody knows that. The game, when you're kind of going through the tutorial, you're going to go ahead and get a character named Strider. He's sort of your starter character, right? He's an important character because every day you log into the game, you have 11 objectives. And those objectives are simple: complete 5 hard campaign light side, shadow side, upgrade a character, add a piece of gear to a character, compete in the arena, etc., etc. You complete all of those, and your goal should be to complete all of them because you will get 100 gems every single day for free, plus some additional campaign energy to use towards farming characters. The importance of the 100 energy or the 100 gems is because you want to do 2x refreshes. So the gems you're getting, the best bang for your buck on how to spend those gems is going to be putting them as 2x campaign yellow energy refreshes. So you're going to want to go ahead and do that every single day. You're going to click on this, and these are going to cost 50, and you're going to get 3 of them. I'm saying to do it 2 times, and in the beginning you're going to get a lot of free gems, so you're probably totally fine to go ahead and maybe go 3 times if you have the currency available, but you will be in a net loss on your gems until you get to at least silver 2 in the arena. When you ding silver 2, you will get 50 gems per day for your position in arena. And that is important because now you're going to get 150 gems a day, which means you are able to go ahead and do 3 refreshes every single day and net out even, which is great because you will passively get other gems through the quest system, which I don't have any quests currently on my account because I've completed them, but you'll get some gems through that system. You'll get gems just from the calendar. So as you log into the game, every single day there's a different reward. You'll see that on some days, which actually they're kind of just disappeared now, but you can see on day 30 for this month, specifically in January, you're going to get 100 gems. They usually do this about 4 or 5 days in the month, so you're going to get a few hundred for free, just to kind of have as surplus. I would recommend taking that surplus and probably using it towards your guild energy. So you'll see a theme here. Your gems in the game are much more valuable towards the kind of not so exciting spend, which is going to be your campaign and guild energy, and not kind of the more flashier things like buying a character or whatever, right? Because the characters that are in the gem shop, unless you're looking to put money into the game and you're not going to be a low spender / free to play player, which probably 90+% of the players in these types of games generally don't spend money, so this is probably going to be a guide more for you. It's not worth chasing the shiny thing because you're not going to be able to do that without spending money. So you're going to want to go after the characters in the game that are farmable. And for you to understand how that works in this game, a marquee character will be released. So that'll be like the new character, the new shiny thing in the game. You will be able to go to the adventures, and there'll be a node here, which doesn't exist right now, but it looks something kind of like this gardener's journey. And you'll be able to access that specific marquee event for that character. And without anything on your account, you'll get just kind of freebie characters and the marquee character to use in kind of like a, how does this character work? What does his kit look like, right? And you'll grind through 4 to 5 rounds. Usually just depends on how many abilities the character has. Generally it's 5 rounds. And when you complete all 5, you get 20 shards per run. At the end of the 5, you have 100 shards, and you're able to summon the new marquee character at a 3-star, add it to your account for free. Then is when the whale side comes in, where you're able to go ahead and drop money into the game. And so you'll see, as an example, these characters were released about a month ago now. We haven't had any new characters added to the game with the holiday season. But Bilbo and Bomber were added. And you'll see there's technically a third pack that doesn't show up in my account right now, and it's $20. So I generally don't buy these, but Bilbo and Bomber looked really strong, and I wanted their characters. So what you can do for $20 is probably your best value if you were ever to spend money, in my opinion, from like a new character shard value kind of proposition. Might not be actually the best value, but I think it's at least relatively worth it if it's something you actually want to put a little money into the game. You are going to spend $20 and you're going to get a free upgrade to 4-star, and you're also going to get some materials and such to be able to upgrade your character to, like, I think you're tier 4 or something like that. So pretty like irrelevant, but you'll get a couple of pieces of like other stuff along, like the crystals, etc. So that'll take you to 4-star, and then you'll see your next kind of expense gets a little bit more, a lot more expensive, right? So it's $100 if you wanted to buy like essentially a gear tier 6 upgrade. Not going to do that, right? Unless you're a spender. And then this is going to be the way that you can take a character from the 4-star, right? So if you got to 3, you spent the 20 to get him to 4, which there's a better way of doing it, but let's just keep it simple. 3 to 4. Now you can spend 1,000 gems, which is roughly $10, right? Give or take about $10. And you can roll for a 0.1% chance of actually just hitting the lottery and getting a 7-star Bilbo immediately, plus a ton of extra shards on top of that character, because you wouldn't need 810, because 810 be a 1-star 0 character, like literally a nothing character to max, and you're already at potentially 4-star at this point, right? So you could take a character all the way up, but generally speaking, your odds are going to be 17, right? You're going to generally hit 17 or 12. So let's just say on average you hit about 15, and you need from 4 to 5 130. That means you're going to have to run that like anywhere from 7 to probably 9 or 10 times. So you're talking to get from 4 to 5-star, roughly $80 to $100. And then from 5 to 6 is another 200 shards. So just keep math simple. I don't know, 150, maybe $200. And then from 6 to 7 would be like another 250. So like you're all in probably around $400 to $500 to get a new release character from 3 to 7, right? And that's one character. And usually they release 2 to 3 characters a month. So like you're spending upwards of $1,000 on a character release, like if you wanted them all to be maxed out. I don't think a lot of people are doing it that way, but again, there are like the super Krakens who are like getting every character maxed upon release. So for perspective, again, stay away from the shinies. You're going to go after the characters that are truly farmable in the game. So to keep things kind of rolling along, you're going to end up with a lot of gold and a lot of XP for character upgrades early on in this game. Don't think that's kind of not a bottleneck, because gold XP And ability materials are some of the biggest bottlenecks in this game. You're going to experience it later on, probably when you get closer to max level, but it is seriously a bottleneck that's going to impact you sooner than later. So take advantage of kind of like the luxury run of your gold not really ever being a problem to upgrade characters, or character XP not being a problem. You can see it here on my account. I have a lot of characters right now that are ready to go 7-star. The problem is that you saw I had a 1.5 million gold. Well, each one of these costs a 500,000 gold, right? So if I want to upgrade Ugluk from 6 to 7, it's going to run me 500,000 gold. And if I wanted to upgrade him from 55 to 60, it's going to run me 150,000 gold with 150 character XP. I could do it, but that's going to eat almost all of my character XP. And the reason why it's so expensive is because it's exponential. So early on, although you are getting a little bit less gold because you're not maybe doing the highest level content that's giving you the best kind of gold reward, per, chapter 5 or chapter 1, whatever, it's the exponential rate is way off in comparison to what you're gaining in a chapter 1, at least in my opinion, or it might actually be truthful here. I haven't really done the numbers, but what you get in chapter 1 versus chapter 5 is not enough to make up the exponential scale of what it costs to do things in the end game, right? So you won't really feel this impact early, but it's going to hit you hard later in the game. And so I'm at the point now where I really have to think about how I spend my gold, because you can see I have a lot of promotes, and I have a lot of 6 to 7 star promotes, which are all 500,000 each. So it's a good problem to have. I have a lot of characters that are kind of peaking on my account, but it's going to run me a pretty penny to do this, right? So it's going to be time before I can do that. Another thing, like I had mentioned, was going to be your ability materials. So if I wanted to upgrade my Arwen here, here's your abilities, right? To get from 1, 2, and 3 is going to be common and uncommon. You're not going to have too much of a bottleneck on this. Early on, you might unlock more characters and have less resources to keep getting them all up to 3. But then as the game progresses, you're just going to naturally end up with a surplus of these for a long time until you start upgrading, late game, your rare materials, your purple ones. Those are going to start to really bite you in the ass. So you can see I have 113 versus 2,100 and 3,100 of the other 2 materials. And these ones, as you go further along, it gets, more and more expensive. So I can't even upgrade this to 5 yet, right? And really 4 is the minimum you want to have on a lot of characters, on a lot of the abilities, with 6 being kind of a mandatory on some key abilities for some of these characters. So just for perspective, those 3 are going to be your bottlenecks to kind of consider in this game. So then as we kind of keep kind of tagging along here, we talked about kind of your leveling progression. We talked about Strider being very important. We talked about not chasing the shinies. We talked about some of the bottlenecks. So let's kind of talk about the characters and sort of the route I would take if I was to create a new account, totally free to play, how I'd approach it. So there's a few things to think about. So there's 2 legendaries currently in the game. You have Elrond, Lord Elrond, right? Which is an elf. One of the best characters in the game. He's probably the best character in the game. And then you have Thorin, who was recently added to the game just in December or late November. I don't remember. But Lord Elrond is an absolute game changer on your account. The plus side is if you have the requirements for these characters, they're technically free unlocks outside of the actual cost upgrading them to their max level. But you don't have to actually go out and farm them. You just have to farm the required characters in order to get them. So Elrond is one, and then Thorin, who I actually don't even have on my account, is your second one. So these are 2 legendaries. These are the only 2 legendaries in the game. Technically, Gandalf the Grey could be considered a legendary. He is a raid, so the Mines of Moria raid currency unlock only. So by participating in the raid, you are able to get Gandalf over time. And you can see that I've now been doing it for a few weeks, and I'm still only 25% there. So it takes a long time to get them, unless you're just in a very high raid, which most likely if you're watching this video, you're not in a very high raid. You might not even be in a guild to even think about Gandalf. Gandalf's someone to think about way down the line. But because you have 2 legendaries, you're not going to have the resources or really the account progression to attack both the requirements. So you're probably going to want to take the route that most people took, which was just based off the release cadence of the characters. So elves are going to be kind of your priority 1, which you need 5 elves at 5 star in order to be able to go and get Lord Elrond. So just to kind of quickly show this, if you look at elves, you can get any one of the 9, so not including Elrond, any one of these 9 elves you can go after in order to get Elrond, and they have to be a 5-star elf. So you need 5-star elves, excluding Elrond, to get Elrond as a 5-star. Then if you get 6-star 5 elves at 6-star, you get him at 6-star. If you have 5 elves at 7-star, you can get Elrond 7-star. The flip side to this is Thorin doesn't require his own group. So dwarves, because he's a dwarf, it doesn't actually require dwarves, 5 of them at 5-star, to get Thorin. It's actually goblins. So a little bit of a curveball there, and a lot of us weren't sure what the requirement was going to be until it was announced right before his release, or pretty close to it. Goblins are the requirement. Technically, Warg of Uters is also inclusive in this requirement. So you have 5 goblins plus Uters as your way of getting Thorin. And again, same requirements, 5-star, 5 stars for a 5-star unlock of Thorin, 5 6-star, 5 7-star, right? The problem with the goblins, Grimpa is a guild node, so he's very easy to farm. Great Goblin is pay to win only, can only buy him the gem store, so he's not really something you're going to go after as a free-to-play player, especially as a new player. And then I think Kraska and Orphers are both pretty late in the campaign, so it's not somebody you're going to be able to farm early or really at all for a while on your account, probably not until month 2 or month 3. So I would tend to say the elves are more important than farming goblins to get Thorin and focus on Elrond. And then as you progress your account, maybe you get your elves to 5-star and get Elrond, and then start working when your account is at the point in time to farm goblins to get Thorin also at 5-star. Then at that point you can decide, okay, what route do I want to take to push your teams to that 6 and 7-star mark. Another thing to just kind of take away, and one of the things I did wrong on my account, we'll make this real quick. These types of games are very important to go very tall versus very wide. I think when we get multi-squad PvP, which doesn't exist in the time of recording this video in January, multi-squad PvP is going to have multiple teams that can participate in, obviously, the arena. And so you're going to want a bit of a wider team than you do want today. But in today's game, the way it exists right now, so if you're watching this as it comes out, you really want to go tall and not wide. And what I mean by that is, I'm more of like a collect them all type of person, and so I went after a lot of characters, and you can see I mostly only have, I have 2 gear tier 8s that I just actually gear tier 8'd recently. I only have a handful of level 60s. You kind of want to find your core 5 and really just push them to the limits, right? You want to get them to 60. You want to get them to 7-star. You want to get them to G8, G9, which gear level 8, gear level 9. So this big, kind of triple ring is a gear 8. The purples now mean I'm pushing to get them to a purple ring, which is gear 9. Gear 10's maxed right now in the game. But you can see the ring's a bit smaller in Arwen and Ajak and Bekaloo, and these are all gear tier 7s. But the problem I did on my account is you can clearly see I have 2 8s, and then I have a plethora of 7s. Which is a good problem to have come PvP, but it's a bad problem to have because all these resources that I kind of spread wide means that I don't have the resources to go 60 out all my elves, gear 9 all my elves. Like, they're kind of where they are because I went so wide. So I would recommend you find the core team you want, and I'll recommend some free-to-play characters here in just a sec that I would I would focus on that are pretty kind of plug and play throughout the game. And then really just ramp them up quick and not kind of go to them, swap, get them to 3, move to another character, get another character to 4-star. Like, just pick characters and fly with them. Very important. So speaking of characters, and call out to Veilshot because he's the original creator of his awesome sort of tier list. So he has a version that if you went to Veilshot Heroes of Middle Earth YouTube channel, you can actually find the link to his spreadsheet in all of his videos with a lot of other great resources. I've been kind of creating my own master sheet. When I'm ready, I'll put this as a shared file and add it to my file so you guys all have access to it if you're interested in using any of the resources that I have sort of in my kind of little tidbits here. But I did take Veilshots. I've added some stuff. I've sort of tinkered with a little bit of the rankings. I left what he did from a weight scale because I think it's relatively pretty good. Not much to really flip-flop there. I've added the characters, since all the characters that are in the game are currently on this file. Some of the things I added is I added release date just because it was kind of helpful if I'm trying to figure out like who came out on release, who's been added and when. And then their tribes, so like, are they Rivendell? Are they Thorin's company? Are they Balin's expedition? Are they Misty Mountain? Are they goblins? Whatever, right? So their race. Then you have the campaign. Are they light or shadow, right? So like, where do they kind of fall into? What is their role? So if you're kind of like, oh man, I have like 3 good tanks, but I'm missing a support or a healer, well, you can just kind of figure it out, right? Farming location, so where are they in the game? Light side campaign, shadow side campaign, guild campaign. Are they a supply store shop? Are they a marquee only, etc.? And then just kind of disregard the yellow. The yellow here is mostly because these are the ones that I want to like sort of just like focus on for this video, because they're kind of good for a free to play kind of new player friendly characters to focus on all aspects of the game. And then you can see the overall is sort of a weighted average of like, how good are they in the campaign? How good are they in the challenges? So the challenges are going to be a very important piece of the game that you'll sort of want to really progress. So today's Sunday, so you actually have access to all of these. So you can see Dark Relics are Monday, Thursday, Sunday. Forged in the Deep is Tuesday, Friday, Sunday. Treasure Trove is Tuesday, Friday, Sunday. So you can kind of see a theme that there's usually 2 per day. Besides Sunday, all of them are up. And what you're really going to want to make sure you're doing is pushing as far as you can to get the best resources available, 3-starring it to then auto it every single day. So like you can see that early on in the game, you're going to get 8,000 gold, X3. These are all available to sim 3 times. So you're going to get 24,000 gold for your sim of Treasure Trove on tier 1. But if you can get yourself to tier 6, you're talking 120,000 gold. So quite the difference. So very important. And that goes for all kinds of things, right? Like the battle experience is going to be 18,000 for 3 sims in comparison to early on is going to be much, much less. So something to consider, something to prioritize. And you can see that the tag is going to say, is it tank only? Is it shadow only? Is it light only? Is it support only? So that's why you kind of have to have a little bit of a widespread roster. But again, going back to the sheet, that's kind of where the challenges come into play. Arenas are just, again, how strong they are in the arena. Raids, how strong they are in the raids. How do they synergize? Versatility is going to be like how much of a plug and play character they are. And then accessibility. So this has a small ranking, but this is worth noting because this is going to say, oh, this character Elrond is absolutely amazing. He's, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best character in the game. His accessibility is a 4. And why is it so low, but he's still so great? Well, it's because he's light node 5/9. So this is a character that you're ultimately pushing your campaign progress for, is going on the hard node light side 5/9. So that's like literally the end of the campaign, because you want Elrond and you want Arwen on the shadow side 5/5. Those are your 2 chase characters on the light and the shadow side right now in this game. They are your kind of end game grind. They are your 2 elves. They're the 2 elves you want to go after. And when you unlock them and you can auto them, you pretty much want to stop, drop everything you're doing, in my opinion, and focus those characters to get them all the way to 7-star. They're just that good. And you want to build out that Elrond, Arwen, and Lord Elrond trio, especially if you're going after Elrond. But again, you can see that the accessibility is weighted low because they're very hard to get, whereas you got like a 10 on Narameri because she is a guild campaign, which is the best bang for your buck in terms of time on how quickly you can farm a character from brand new unlock to 7-star. So any guild character is weighted significantly higher than anything else in the game because you can get them so fast. And not only that, she's early on in the guild. So this is a character that like in the first week, if not the first couple of days, you could get your hands on a Narameri and start already getting her going, right? And she's, again, guild campaign's a blue energy, so you can just prioritize blue energy and just go after this character along with a lot of other guild characters. So this is kind of the weighting, and I kind of took a brief look at it, like, all right, did all my kind of numbers sort of weight them out and where I feel they should belong? And I generally believe that this is a pretty good breakdown. You got, you know, your Rivendell, which we discussed, are very, very strong characters in this game. Then you got Aemir, who's a Rohan character and probably one of the strongest kind of plug and play DPS characters. Lord Balin is very good. Thorin's the other legendary. Arwen, again, another elf. Narameri technically isn't Rivendell, but just the way that I kind of wanted to keep things simple in terms of the tribes. She's technically an elf, not a Rivendell elf. Bomber is one of the new characters, as you saw earlier in the video, who's not quite really farmable yet, but he is an absolute top 10 character, in my opinion. Ironhide is absolutely insane. We're not going to go through all of them, but essentially, I kind of looked at this and said, yeah, this feels pretty good. Like where they kind of fell in play it felt pretty good, right? So you have, you know, some really high end characters, and it sort of teeters down the list as you go through. So anyway, so this is kind of the cheat sheet here. As we sort of discussed, this is another great resource that came from Veiled Shot. I did some math on this, and then I think he made a video showcasing this, and I was like, well, this would have been helpful. But you can see, again, we kind of talked about how the guild node is such a great grind. Well, you can see if you have a 4-star character and you wanted to get him to 7-star, it literally, without refreshing, would take you 34 days. So if you did any kind of refreshes, this would just be that much faster. So in about a month, you can get a maxed out character. A little longer than that if obviously you're getting a level 1 character, of course, but essentially about a month and a half time, you're getting a maxed out character. Whereas the challenge shop, which is an absolute disaster and needs a complete rework, which everyone who's been playing this game can completely agree, is clearly a slog and upwards of 9 months before you're going to get a challenge store character max. So just ridiculous. Guild store, we'll kind of talk about some of these other stores in the game, but the hard nodes, you can see it still takes about 6 months to max out a character from 3 to 7-star. The catch is you can farm, you know, 7, 8, 9 different characters at a time. So although it takes a very long time to get a maxed out character, you can at some point pretty much hit a window in 6 months where you're hitting like 6, 7, 8, 9 characters all dinging around or at 7-star, and then moving on to your next 2 teams worth of characters that you're trying to farm to that max level. So although it's a very long grind, you can grind multiple, whereas guild node, you're going to really just farm 1 character. Arena store, same case, 1 character. Guild store, 1 character. Challenge store, 1 character. So these other ones where the arena store is like, well, 71 days is pretty good, right? Well, yeah, it is good, but that's 1 character for 71 days. So it's going to take you 2.5 months to get a character maxed out. Hard node is going to take you 6 months, but you're going to get 8 characters on average to 7-star. So just kind of something to keep in mind. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then if we're looking at, I don't have it on my cheat sheet here, unfortunately, so I can't really, I do actually. So if you're a free-to-play player, this is just like a quick math. There is a better spreadsheet out there, but just to keep things quick here, you're getting on average about 508 campaign energy a day. So that is throughout the day, passively gaining 5 energy per, or 1 energy per 5 minutes. You're getting 3 logins throughout the day. That gives you 45 energy. You're getting energy through your daily objectives of your 85 energy. So this is putting you at 508 with 0 refreshes, assuming you're doing your 3 refreshes, which you should be. You're getting 868 usable energy throughout the day. Guild energy, you're getting 144 regen because it's half of the campaign, because you're getting 1 every 10 minutes versus every 5. But you are also getting that same 3 refresh of 45 times 3 per day. Again, so that puts you at 279. And then if you did any type of refresh, it's 120 per refresh. So this isn't 3 refreshes. 3 refreshes would be 360, but you would get 279 a day with no refreshes. That's probably going to be a standard player. And your 3x refreshes is probably a standard playing player, because you should hit silver 2 really, I think, without too much of an issue if you're actually playing the game. So you're going to be looking at, you know, the actual free to play plus your 360 to give you the 868. So just for reference, this is kind of what you're looking at for spendable energy per day. So let's kind of go through the characters and sort of like my thoughts, and then we'll kind of round up this video. So we can start with filtering this by the color, because these are the characters I would primarily focus on. And I think a lot of people would generally agree that these are sort of your kind of free to play focus characters to help you progress through the campaign, characters you can actually get to that aren't, you know, like, oh yeah, you want Arwen and Elodin. Well, yeah, that's great, but they're the 5th chapter, and I'm not even in chapter 3 yet, and I'm months away from that, or at least a month or two months away. Well, that's not really great information to tell me I can't get to that character anytime soon. Well, what can you get to? Well, let's look at the shops first, right? So if I go back to the client and I go to the shops, so there's a couple of shops here you're able to get characters. So not looking at this one because we're not really thinking about spending actual gems. If we go to the guild shop, we're missing a character in here right now, but you have Boromir, you have Merry. So this is a Gondor squad, this is a Ranger squad. Both squads I wouldn't generally recommend a new player going after. And then your other one for the guild shop that I would focus on is Webete. You also could consider, I believe, or not believe, the other character you could totally go after in there is going to be Lord Balin. So Lord Balin, or I'm sorry, not Lord Balin, I'm mixing out because I'm looking at something on my other screen. Bifur. So Bifur's another dwarf. So you kind of have the choice here. Webete is a good shadow character who's not super plug and play, but he's pretty good in the campaign because he has AoE. So he's somebody you could go after, and he is a Haradrim character, which Haradrim is like a top 3 raid team. But the problem with the Haradrim is the challenge shop, which I do have Tebeb as sort of your character to consider for the challenge shop, is the 9-month grind. So the challenge shop becomes kind of that, like, do I do Tebeb or I just use the currency in that shop to farm the, you know, like essences and stuff. Honestly, it could go either way at this point. That shop is brutal until they rework it. It's a slog. But if you are considering Haradrim, then definitely Webite. If you're looking for a bit more of a plug and play character, you're thinking about Thorin, you're thinking about dwarfs, then Biffer would be kind of the play here. Either one is totally fair to go after. I would say Biffer is better than Webite, but Webite is probably a good character for a shadow team for your campaign, and he's just a good character. There's nothing really wrong with going either one of them. You get this currency by just doing the guild campaign, and you generate this currency passively from just kind of doing, you know, energy spend there, and you'll eventually end up with enough to buy, you know, these refreshes once a day or once every other day. This is the challenge shop, and you can see I don't have enough yet to buy the 3k, but I could buy the 1500. But as soon as I buy it, 5 shards, I'm gonna be unable to buy it again until I get a refresh of this currency, which you only get this currency once every, like, you get it 3 times a week. So you essentially can only buy like 15 shards every week. And then once a month or a month and a half, you have enough, if you have the tier 6 of the challenge that we looked at in the adventures, if you have the 1800 per completion of the autos, then technically you could, once, like every month and a half, you can go ahead and get a 4th for the week, right? So, but generally 15 a month, 15 a week. It's brutal. So Tebeb is somebody I'm focused on because for my account, Rivendell and Haradrim, the 2 focus teams that I'm really trying to push them to the limit and get them to be the strongest on my roster. But if I was a new player, honestly, again, until this is reworked, so if it's reworked, this could be old information, I would probably spend the 150s on just kind of feeding you some blue essences here and maybe save you the gold from buying these things in the shop. Speaking of the shop, you probably want to start thinking about buying all the blues. So the crystals are really good to buy. The essences, you're gonna need them, so just kind of stockpile them as you're kind of playing the game. Probably skip purples. You're not going to be looking at purples for a while. I wouldn't drop 3k on these early on in the game because you're going to be a little bit probably gold starved to be dropping that much, because this refreshes like 3 or 4 times a day. So if you were dropping like, 20,000-30,000 a refresh, like you're spending like 50,000 gold in this store, possibly more. So probably skip the purples, focus the blues, definitely buy the greens. All your characters are going to need greens for a while. And then glyphs, so that's like a whole nother layer in this game, and I'm not going to really do a deep dive into glyphs. I can make a separate video on that, but essentially as of January 2024, the best ones in the game is Last Stand and Bloodlust. So if you see a Last Stand or Bloodlust in here, go for it. Shield Wall is okay, Armor Pierce was okay. I actually have a video that I did a tier list of all the glyphs, so if you're interested, you can go take a look at that. But Last Stand and Bloodlust are pretty much going to be on every character in the game right now. They're just that good. Lembas is good too. Lembas is pretty good on support characters or characters that are trying to do a turn 1 move that generally they couldn't do because they don't have enough stamina to do it. So Lembas is kind of like a pseudo filler, but Last Stand, Bloodlust, if they show up in the shop, buy them. Otherwise, just passively get any of the glyphs by farming characters or farming gear pieces that you need for characters, because a lot of them are on the same node. So you could get like, making it up, Hide is on chapter 1-3. I don't know, I'm just making it up. But 1-3 could also have Bloodlust, right? So you can get it by just kind of getting other stuff. I wouldn't go out of your way to really farm glyphs. So that's my 2 cents there. Don't really overthink glyphs because it's a slog and it's a real nightmare to manage, because there's not like a lot of management that they kind of released with the glyph system. They sort of just released it and didn't give you like a whole lot of additional tools within the glyph system. So it kind of becomes a nightmare. But Arena Store. So Arena Store, Éomer is going to be the one I'd say you really want to go after. Éomer is really, really good. He's a Rohan. You'll hear a lot about the Rohan 3, the Rohan trio. Technically, Rohan has a team of 5 characters, but nobody uses Eldred and Wilfwyn. You generally only ever see Lady Éowyn, Éomer, and Eothane used together. Those characters are going to be the characters that are plug and play on a lot of teams. sort of just put the three together with like two other really good characters that aren't really working with another team, or are just not, like, they're just kind of like flex characters as well, to make like a mishmash raid team to use in the raid. So again, thinking like long term. Amber's also really good in arena, so he's a fantastic character to add for arena. Again, he's good in campaign. The whole Rohan trio is good in campaign because you got a support character, a DPS, and a tank and Aothane. So very, very good. I would focus and prioritize Amber and getting him up as fast as possible. Legolas is going to be an elf, and Goldberst is going to be a goblin. So again, depending on the route you want to take when it comes to unlocking Lord Elrond or unlocking goblins, those would be the two you'd look at. Shagrat, you're totally going to just skip out for now. He's not worth it. So those would be kind of like your store attack characters. So if we're going back here, like we kind of said, to Beb, we could look at sort of the essences over him. Guild shop, we mentioned Webite, but you could consider Biffer. Strider is going to be your daily. Amor is kind of my recommendation, but you could also consider Legolas or Goldberst if you really want to start thinking about going after your goblins. So that's kind of all that. So then if we wanted to look at, I guess we could take out the shops and kind of slim this file down a smidge. So if we're looking at the like just straight up the campaigns, right? So we can talk guild campaign first. So guild campaign is good to like look at. We have a lot here. You're not going to go after all 5 obviously at a time, because we kind of talked about how it takes about a month and a half to level a guild character from 1 to 7 star. So really, if you were pushing these characters to 7 star, so you're just focusing one all the way through, this would still take you about 5 to 6 months to max out with no refreshes. So this is well past like you're hitting 60, you're kind of like in the end game or deep into the end game at that point in time. But you definitely want like 2 to 3 to be on your kind of agenda, because that'll be your sort of leveling characters through your leveling process, right? So Elrohir and Narameri are both elves. Again, all these I kind of left filtered based off of how early on you can get them, so that way that they're actually achievable for you as a new player. Also, the guild, you could go a bit deeper, because the guild campaign allows you to use a guild member's character. So you could get a very, very strong character if somebody in your guild is like max level, kind of has a good roster. You can kind of steal one of his characters to use it for your run. The caveat to that is if you're not 3-starring it, you can't auto it. And most likely if you're going well above your weight, you're probably not going to be able to actually 3-star it, because most likely if you're like in chapter 5 or something like that, or chapter even 4, you're probably going to get one shot on one of your other characters. And therefore, unless you want to run it 5 times and, or more than that, like just speaking to like what you could probably get on your own, these are the characters that I would more or less think about. Edric is in there and Eldred is in there. I would skip those 2 characters in chapter 1. So Elrohir is absolutely a mammoth DPS, somebody you're going to want to probably prioritize getting maxed out also very early on, especially if you're thinking about going the Lord Elrond route. Narameri is another elf, so again, a character you can go after super easily to get your second elf without too much of an issue, because she is a guild campaign node. So that's 2 of your 5L requirements. If you went after Legolas, that's 3. So you only need 2 more. So you could go with like a Leliel and a Lomian, who might not be somebody you can get like in the first month, but 2 characters you could certainly get probably within your second month to start farming. And that way you kind of have your like 5-star group early on. Rumil and Orphan are still not farmable, but they should be added any day of recording this video. They're both very good. So if they're farmable and they're on an early node or somewhere else in the game, they might be worth considering again if you're going after Lord Elrond, which you probably should be. Ironhide is a large character. He is very good in PvP. He's got 2 AoE, so he's very, very good in the campaign. He's probably somebody you want to go after as well early on. Uglok is another one. He's a tank, but he's one of the, I think he has one of the highest like health pool, armor pool. He does very good damage. He's overall a strong character, but he's a little bit of like a disguise, because 3 other characters I'm going to recommend in here, because they're early on characters given to you / easy farmable characters. They're all part of the Isengard squad. Isengard, they're good in campaign, but they are not really that good in the end game and really the raids at all. So I wouldn't heavily invest into them. I would kind of just use them to get through the campaign and move on. So just go as deep as you have to complete the campaign, and then don't really put anything else into them. What I try to do here also when I was considering a lot of this is like, you need both sides. You need light and shadow. So you can't just go like one-sided. So if you were like, I want Gauze and I want Ugluk, well, that's great, but they're both shadow. You're gonna need to have some light side as well. So you can kind of pick what you want to do here, but Pippin's a healer and Naramari is a healer. So depending on if you go Road to Rivendell and you want to go the Sam adventure route and kind of farm him over time, that is one decision you could go. But if you want to go elves, I'd probably hold off on Pippin, focus Naramari, and then probably think about Elro here, and then, you know, Ugluk and Ironheart. Essentially, these 4 characters should be a priority, or Pippin and skipping Naramari, just depending on what your ultimate like end game plan is, right? Like in these types of games, you got to have like a long-term plan. That's going to be different per person. There's not like one set way of playing this game. It, you know, again, this is a great IP. You could just absolutely love Frodo and Sam, and you just want Road to Rivendell. Well, then I would suggest Pippin, so you can go after Sam, right? Like, but if you're trying to min max, I'd probably say Naramari and Elra here, because you're going to really want probably Lord Elrond as soon as you can get him. And speaking of legendaries, we don't really know the exact cadence, but generally from what we've seen so far in the game, Lord Elrond's come out and then was re-released about 4 months later. So assuming it's a similar release schedule, then you're probably anticipating seeing Lord Elrond sometime in maybe March or early April, followed by Thorin probably about a month after him. So about every 4 months, those two will kind of rotate in and out. So if you're just starting the game or in January, just food for thought, you know, you're about 3 months out at most from a Lord Elrond event, which puts you in a tough spot to actually be able to probably get him, to get characters to 5 stars, unless you're really hard focusing on those 5, you know, those 5 elves. But so that's a guild campaign. These are definitely like your core 5 you want to think about early on. Bekaloo later down the line, if you go the Haradrim route, she's in the guild campaign. She's in chapter 4. She's also a great farm. I will say as one note, try to focus these characters sort of early and hit them hard and move on, because one thing you don't want to do, which is what I've been having to do, is we mentioned the rare ability materials become a little bit of a bottleneck. The only way to get the ability materials in this game is through the guild campaign, and the only really spot you can get them consistently pretty well is going to be through chapter 5, which as of recording this video, there are no characters in chapter 5 to farm. But Bekaloo is the end of chapter 4, so she's the only farmable node that gives you a little bit of value when it comes to getting character shards and ability materials for the purple ones. So she's kind of like a nice farm to do for both Haradrim and for ability materials that you need to upgrade your character's abilities. But eventually you're going to want to hit chapter 5 and just hit it hard with, at this point in time, no characters attached to it. So you're just strictly farming for gold, character XP, and ability materials. The caveat to that is that there's a lot of good characters in the guild campaign you can farm, and if you have to go back at level 60 at, you know, decent spot into the game and refarm like a Pippin who's a chapter 1 farm, it feels really bad getting like nothing else besides Pippin's shards, right? You just don't care that much about anything else that is giving you, and you're losing a ton of resources in all the other buckets because it just gives you more per chapter. So food for thought there. But if we were to go ahead and cut that one out and look at light and shadow, these are sort of the characters that I would suggest. You can see we got 3 light and 3 shadow. You can see we got 3 light and 3 shadow on the nodes, and they're all in chapters 1 and chapter 2. So they're pretty much characters you're going to get right off the bat in this game. So Frodo's not here because Frodo's a freebie. So you're going to have Strider right around, I think, within the actual tutorial, you get Frodo. So you have Strider and Frodo off the bat on your account. Immediately you're going to get Eothane, who's your Rohan 3 tank. So he's going to be a nice addition to your team. Then you're going to get, I think, maybe another character or 2 in the light campaign chapter 1, but not really any characters I would necessarily suggest you add to your roster of like kind of upgrading, leveling, and utilizing through the campaign. Just kind of use them to get to the end of the chapter. Then you're going to get Mauer, who's going to be your shadow side. You're going to get him in light 2-1, followed by Lord Balin in light 2-7. So Lord Balin is recently added into the campaign, and he is an absolute fantastic plug and play character in the raids. He has such a great kit and is totally worth if I was free to play and starting today, when Lord Balin wasn't a farmable character when I played, I would absolutely prioritize him as a character that I'm focusing on. So this gives you the Rohan 2 plus the third one, which is Aemir in the arena shop. So you have your Rohan 3, which is a great kind of trio to sort of farm. You have Lord Balin, who's going to be one of your dwarfs, so just a great dwarf to farm, because again, he's going to eventually work with Thorin down the line. And then again, you'll see that we have sort of just some like early light shadow 1/1 and 1/5 to get you that other Rohan squad member and Dunhar. And then you're going to get Morza and Mauer, or not Morza, Mauer, later Eowyn, followed by Dunhar and Morza. So Mauer, Dunhar, and Morza are going to be your Isengard squad, and they're going to plug and play very well with Ugluk. So your team's probably going to be Ugluk, Ironhide, and then your 3 Isengard members. So you're going to have 4 Isengard members plus Ironhide. You could also not do Ironhide if you want to skip him in the guild campaign to use that resource towards a different character and instead use Webite. So you could do Webite, who's an AoE guy and a tank. Then you could have Ugluk, who is a tank, with his other 3 Isengard members. So that'd be sort of your squad team. And then your light side would be your triple Rohan. And then you have the luxury of kind of flexing in other characters like Narameri or Pippin or Elrohir, so just like another DPS or a support. You have Lord Balin you could flex in as a character. You still have Strider, who's probably going to be one of your strongest characters. He's sort of like your freebie. You have Frodo in there, so again, if you decide to go road to Rivendell, you'd have Frodo. And so these are just very good early on characters to consider adding to your roster and sort of your focal point. So I wanted to make this video. I think, you know, it's kind of a long one and there's a lot to time to take in. I'll definitely have timestamps below, so if you sort of have to bounce around and figuring out, you know, okay, he mentioned X, what did he say again? I'll make sure I have all that in the game. But ultimately, like I had mentioned, the big thing here is you just you have to have a plan, right? And so if your plan is that you want Lord Elrond, then you're gonna have to focus on how am I gonna get my 5 elves, right? And so we sort of talked about that, and you know, you can certainly use Veiled Shot's guide, which is pretty much identical to this, outside of just some nuanced changes to the numbers and some additional kind of, you know, tidbits here, etc, etc. So like, just kind of keep in mind it's not like an exact one for one, but the format is identical, so it should be easy to like reuse. And I'll make sure I add this to my video when it's ready to be shared. It's just not kind of there yet. There's some stuff on here that I need for me and not for everybody else, etc. So I'll certainly share this as soon as it's ready, just so there's like a secondary kind of version of it out there. But you can see that in general, elves are very strong, right? Like outside of Laeliel, which she isn't even like god awful, she just like not really, she just doesn't really have a spot on the team because she's a tank. And so you already have Elladan kind of taking that spot, and then Rumel's going to be a farmable character soon, who's not right now, but he will be. So that's like a second tank that you would probably use for an elf. So then at that point, like Laeliel is just kind of like an awkward spot character, you know, so it makes it a little bit hard to kind of consider her for you know, for sort of an elf that's worthy of farming to get to 5-star. But if you take out, you know, this one guy here, Elladan and Arwen, like we had mentioned, are your 2 pretty much focus characters to go after in this game, your grind characters that you want to go and really kind of hard hit, but they're like your end game grind. So you're not going to really have them for Lord Elrond, sort of, unless like you just happen to start playing and the timing just works out where like Elrond just passed and you're just about to get Elladan and Arwen, then yeah, Elladan and Arwen are going to be your focus. But you're probably going to have Elrond here because he's a guild campaign, so he's like a freebie. Narameri is your second freebie, and then Legolas would be like your third freebie. So then you really just have to find 2 other characters, which is probably going to be Lomian, and then hopefully your 5th could be either Rumil or Orphan, if either one ends up being farmable, which we should find out in the next week or 2 on where they end up in the game as farmable. And then your last resort would be Laeliel, right? So that'd be like who I'd probably prioritize, and all of which are farmable very early on in your account, even like Lomian at 2.9, probably within the first like couple of weeks. Laeliel might be the only one that's going to take some time to get to the end of chapter 3 before you can start really just auto farming her. And then eventually you're going to get Elladan and Arwen. So that would be kind of like, you know, again, from the 2 routes you're really going after is going to be like, I want the legendaries, right? I want the best characters in the game and I want the legendaries. Well, here's sort of your grind for the elves. And then again, the goblins are your grind to get Thorin. these are a little bit harder because right now Great Goblin is not farmable. He's only pay to win. So there's no real way right now in the game to get Thorin without paying for Thorin, because the only other character you could do this with is Uters, who's going to be a warg, and he was recently added to the game, and he's also only pay to win because he's a marquee. So there's no farmability on Uters or Great Goblin right now. So there's no way to get 5-star goblins or 5-star Thorin without paying to get him. Now, in a couple of months, there might be some change. Uters should be farmable. Great Goblin might move at some point because he's been a pay to win only character, I think, since release of the game. So he might move sooner than later. But otherwise, Grimpa is a pretty easy farm. He's a guild campaign. So like we discussed, very, very quick. Goldber's is the arena shop, so similar to like an Amor. So if you decide to go the Goblin route for Thorin, like you could just sub out, you know, Legolas or Amor for Goldber's. And then the same thing goes for, well, no, those are the two, sorry. So these two are going to be your kind of like easy peasy kind of grind goblins. And then your Chef Kraska and your Ufers are a little bit more difficult because you can see that, again, they're kind of like your Arwen Eladin grinds. They're very late in the campaign. Not as late, but they're late, where they're not going to be characters you're really farming for a little bit of time in your account. So with that, it makes it difficult because you're going to already be putting a lot of time and investment in other characters. So you'd have to kind of stop that grind and then switch gears, which then could make it so your account is hindered by progression in the arena, because now, you know, you're kind of stopping that grind of a 5 to a 6-star or whatever, right? Or you're in the campaign, but then you stopped your shadow team to work on this brand new goblin team. So now your shadow team can't progress any further. So now you can't get to your Arwen node, you know, so it just like there's going to be like those kind of give and takes that you have to consider. And so for me, goblins is like round 2 of a legendary kind of push, whereas the elves make a little more sense because you're grinding elves to get an elf, but you have to grind goblins to get dwarves. So you're going to have to go and all in on goblins to get Thorin. And then when you get Thorin, well, yeah, he's a great character, but now you need to grind the dwarves. And at this point, the only dwarf you might have grinded is Lord Balin. You're going to have to go after Gimli, which, again, guild campaign, not bad. Feely, Biffer you could have gone after too in the guild shop. So you can, again, you have routes you can take, but Thorin's a difficult route because you kind of have to go after 2 separate teams to kind of make it work out. Whereas the elves, you really get to go after one team and do it. So that's like kind of food for thought there. But yeah, anyways, this video is already way longer than I was really anticipating. I hope this makes sense. If you have any questions, drop them down below. I'd be happy to answer them. Welcome to the game if you're a new player to Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle-earth. I've been playing it for roughly 4 or 5 months now, and I've been having a really good time. I'm a part of a very kind of big guild, and you know, it's been fun to progress through the raids and kind of just see the new content constantly added to the game. We're in a little bit of a lull right now as we're coming out of the holidays, but Star Wars Galaxy Heroes is the same game Capital Games makes that's very similar to the design of Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle-earth. So if you never played any of these kind of games, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes has been out for 8 years. They have tons of content, lots of things to keep you interested. This game's a little bit lackluster right now on the content side because it hasn't been out for a year, but a lot of things to look forward to. So hope you found this interesting. I hope you found this helpful. And if you liked it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will hopefully see you guys in the next one. Bye.